there, this is a very good opportunity for the cast to get ready for the play. We're having competition tomorrow, and they really need an audience to help them get to the next level. The performance you'll be seeing today is called The Investigation by a man by the name of Peter Weiss. Now, this play is about the Frankfurt war crimes against humanities. In 1945, the end of 1945-46, they prosecuted several people, many people, for the atrocities that happened in Auschwitz and other death camps. And this play is very fitting for right now because yesterday was the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz by the Russians. While you're watching today, I would please like to remind you that performing in front of peers is one of the hardest performances that an actor has, because you know all these people, you know all of them, and it's very hard for you to think about them as characters in a play. So please give this your utmost attention. I would also ask you that you respect the theater, and for example, please don't put your feet up on the chairs. Please don't put gum under the seats. I would ask you to respect this theater and these seats as you would respect your own car. You would not put gum under your dashboard. You do, on top of it. So, as soon as Mr. Satter and Mr. Miller are ready, are you ready, gentlemen? All right. Here we go.
The witness was station master of the railroad station where the trains arrived. How far was the station from the camp?
1.25 miles from the old army camp, about 3 miles from the main camp.
Did your work ever take you into the camp?
No, I only had to make sure that the tracks were in good condition and that the trains arrived and departed according to schedule.
Were you in charge of setting up the train schedules?
No, I only had to take care of the scheduling of the traffic between the station and the camp.
The record contains scheduling orders bearing your signature.
It's possible that in the absence of an officer in charge, I occasionally had to sign one.
Did you know the purpose of the transport?
I wasn't informed on that matter.
You knew the trains are loaded with people.
All we were told was that it had to do with the relocation transports carried out under government orders.
Did it seem strange to you that the trains returning from the camp were always empty?
People forwarded had to be relocated there.
How were the trains that arrived at your station equipped and loaded?
The trains in question were freight trains. According to the bills of lading, some 60 persons were forwarded in each car.
Were the cars freight cars or were they cattle cars?
Some of the cars were the kind used to ship cattle.
Were there any sanitary installations in these cars?
I don't know.
How often did these trains arrive?
I couldn't say.
Did they arrive frequently?
Yes, sure, it was a very busy terminal.
Didn't it strike you that the trains came from almost every country in Europe?
We had so much to do, there wasn't any time to worry about things like that.
Did you ever wonder about what was going to happen to the people in those trains?
We heard they were being shipped there for supplementary aid.
But there weren't only people fit for work, but whole families with old people and children.
I didn't have time to check the contents of the trains.
Did you see the prisoners who had to work at the camp?
I saw them when they marched toward the camp.
What condition were they in?
They marched in step and they sang.
You didn't hear anything about conditions in the camp.
There were so many insane rumors going around, you never knew what to think.
You heard nothing about the annihilation of people there?
How could anybody believe a thing like that?
Did you see anything of the camp itself?
Nothing.
Did you see the chimneys at the end of the platform, or the smoke and glare?
Yes.
And
I saw smoke.
And what did you think?
I thought they must be the bakeries. I heard they bake bread there day and night. After all, it was a very big camp.
We traveled 5 days. On the second day, our provisions were used up. There were 89 of us in the freight car, our suitcases and bundles besides. We relieved ourselves in the straw. Many were sick, and 8 were dead. On the last night, we were switched off a main track onto a siding. We passed through a flat region lit up by searchlights. Then we came up along a very long building, like a shed. There was a tower, and under it an archway. The locomotive whistled before we went in under the arch. The train stopped. The freight car doors were pulled open. Prisoners in striped uniforms appeared and yelled in at us, "Out! Move! Fast! Fast!" The dead and the luggage were thrown out of the cars. Then I heard, "Leave everything where it is. Women and children there. Men on the other side." I lost sight of my family. All around, people were shouting for their families, their relatives. They were being beaten with clubs. Dogs were barking. Searchlights and machine guns were trained at us from the observation towers. At the end of the platform was the sky, glowing red. The air was full of smoke. The smoke had a sweet, singed smell. From then on, this smoke was always there.
Accused Hoffman, what were your duties on the platform?
I was there to keep peace and order.
How did you do that?
The people were lined up. Then the doctors decided who was fit for work and who wasn't. Sometimes there were more, and sometimes less. The percentage was decided beforehand. It was determined by the need for manpower at the time.
What happened to those who were not used for work?
They were gas.
What percent of the people was fit for work?
On the average, 1/3 of the transport. When the camp was overloaded, transports went straight through without being opened.
Did you yourself carry out any selections?
All I can say is that sometimes, when they begged me to, I pushed somebody unfit over to the fit group.
Were you allowed to do that?
No, it was against regulations, but we closed our eyes to it.
In the performance of your duties, did you ever have to resort to force?
There was always a lot of confusion, and naturally, sometimes somebody had to be straightened out or slapped. I always did my duty. Whatever I was assigned to do, I do my duty.
Did you know what would happen to the people who were selected?
And as prosecutor, I personally didn't have anything against those people. There's some like them at home too, before they were taken away. I always used to tell my family, you go right on buying for them. After all, they are human too.
Was that still your attitude while you were doing platform duty?
Well, except for small troubles, like you get whenever you have a lot of people in a small place. And except for the gas leaks, which naturally were terrible. Still, everybody had a chance for survival. Personally, I always behaved decently. Anyway, what could I do? Orders are orders, and not just because I've got this trial hung on my neck. As prosecutor, I've always tried to live in peace, just like everybody else. And then so I'm hauled out, and everybody starts talking about Hoffman. That's the one, that's Hoffman. They say, what do they want from me?
When we had crossed the tracks and were lined up in front of the camp gate, I heard a prisoner say to one of the women, "That Red Cross truck takes gas to the crematoriums. Your relatives will be killed there." The woman began to scream. An officer who had overheard the prisoner turned to the woman and said, "But my dear woman, how can you believe what a prisoner tells you? They're all either criminals or insane. Look at the way their ears stick out and their shaved heads. How can you listen to such people?"
Even though we were separated from our families, we still walked, unsuspecting, through the gate between the barbed wire. We thought our children were going to be fed on the other side, and that we would be allowed to see them again soon. But then we saw hundreds of ragged figures, many of them starved down to skeletons. We lost all hope.
One of them came up to us and shouted, "Prisoners, See that smoke behind the barracks? That smoke is your children. And for you too, now that you're in here. There's only one way out. Up. Through the soot and the chimneys.
We were pushed into a washroom barrack. Guards and prisoners came with stacks of papers. We had to strip, and everything we still had on us was taken away. Watches, rings, papers, pictures were registered to personal files. Then numbers were tattooed on the left forearm.
How was this done?
The numbers were pricked into our skin with a needle stamp. Then ink was rubbed in. Our hair was cut off, and we had a cold shower. After that, we got our clothes.
What clothes were you given?
A pair of shorts full of holes, an undershirt, a torn jacket, a pair of patched pants, a cap, and a pair of wooden shoes. Then we set out at the double to our barrack.
What did your barrack look like?
A wooden barrack without windows, a door in the front and one in the back. Small skylights up under the roof. Right and left, two-decker bunks, the bottom level on the ground. The bunks were supported by partition beams, length of the barrack about 130 feet.
How many prisoners were quartered there?
It was built to hold 500 people. There are 1,000 of us,
How many such barracks were there?
more than 200.
How wide were the bunks?
About 6 feet, 6 women to a bunk. They had to keep shifting from their right side over to their left.
Was any bedding provided?
Some of the bunks had straw. The straw was rotten, and it sifted down from the top bunks onto the lower ones. There was one blanket for each bunk. The women who lay on the outside kept trying to pull the blanket over their way. The strongest lay in the middle.
Were there sanitary installations in the barracks?
There were wood troughs for washing in the washroom barracks. In the latrine, there were long cement troughs covered with boards with round holes in them. 200 people could use them at one time. The latrine detail saw to it that nobody sat there too long. They clubbed the prisoners right and left to drive them out. Many of the prisoners simply couldn't get done that quick. Part of their rectum stuck out from the strain. As soon as they had been driven out of the latrine, they got back in line.
The bowls we were given served 3 different functions. To wash in, to get our supper in, and to relieve ourselves in at night. In the women's camp, the only place you could get water was right next to the latrine. At that thin trickle of water that ran off into vats full of excrement, women stood and drank and tried to collect enough water in their bowls so they could wash. Those who gave up washing had given up.
Even as I jumped out of the freight car into that confusion on the platform, I knew that what mattered here was to look out for yourself, to try to work your way up, to make a good impression, and to keep away from anything that might drag you down. The supreme commandment was to stay healthy and to show that you were physically strong. I stuck close to those who were too weak to eat their rations, so I could take their food at the first opportunity. I didn't take my eyes off those who were dying, if they had a better sleeping place than I. Our way up in this new society started in the barracks, which was our home now. From starting out sleeping on the cold mud floors, we fought our way up to the warm places on the top bunks. When 2 had to eat out of the same bowl, they stared at each other's throats to make sure that the other wasn't swallowing an extra spoonful. It was normal, that everything had been stolen from us. It was normal, that we stole too. Dirt, sores, and diseases were what was normal. And it was normal that all around us people were dying. It was normal to live in the face of one's own death. Our feelings grew numb as we looked at the corpses with complete indifference, and that was normal. Only the cunning survived, only those who every day with unrelenting alertness took and held their bit of ground. The unfit, the retarded, the slow, the gentle, the bewildered and the impractical, the ones who mourned and the ones who pitied themselves were crushed. One day, we were sent out to dig graves. Many of the women collapsed, trying to shovel the mud out. We were up to our hips in water. The guards stood by looking on. They were very young. One of the women turned to the captain. "Captain," she said, "I can't work this hard anymore. I'm pregnant. The guards laughed. And one of them pushed her down with a shovel, kept her under the water until she drowned. I heard a guard talking through the barbed wire to a 9-year-old boy. You know a lot for a boy your age, he said. The boy answered, I know that I know a lot, and I also know that I'm not going to learn any more. He was loaded into a truck with a group of about 90 children. When the children started screaming and struggling, the boy yelled, Get in here, get in the truck. You saw the way your parents and grandparents went. Climb in, then you'll get to see them again. And as they were being driven on, I heard him shout back to the guard, You won't be forgiven anything.
Accused Stark. You're in charge of the reception area and in hand for the arrival of all transports. Did you ever take part in the gassings?
There was one time I had to.
How many prisoners were involved?
Somewhere around 150. 4 truckloads anyway.
Who were the prisoners?
It was a mixed transport.
What was your job?
I stood outside by the stairs after I led them into the crematorium. The medical orderlies in charge of the gassing had locked the doors and were making the necessary preparations.
What kind of preparations?
They got out the cans and put on their gas masks. Then they went up the embankment to the roof deck. Usually it took 4 men to do the job. This time there were only 3, and they called back. They needed somebody to come and help them out. Since I was the only one around, Grabner said, Move, give them a hand. Then the camp leader came over to me and said rather sharply, If you don't go up there, then you go. So I had to go up and help pour.
Where was the gas thrown in?
Through vents in the deck.
What did the prisoners in the chamber below do then?
I don't know.
You didn't hear anything what was going on down there?
They screamed.
For how long?
Around 10 or 15 minutes.
Who opened the chamber afterward?
One of the orderlies.
What did you see in there?
I didn't take a very close look.
Did you see anything wrong with what you saw there?
No, not at all. Only the way it was done.
What do you mean?
If they had been shot, it would have been one thing. But the use of gas was unmanly and cowardly.
Accused Stark, during the course of your duties, did you ever have any doubt about your conduct in the camp?
Your Honor, I would like to explain that every third word we'd heard, even back in grammar school, was about how they were to blame for everything, and how they ought to be weeded out. It was hammered into us that this would only be for the good of our people. In leadership school, we were taught about all to accept everything without question. If someone did raise a question, they were told. What's being done is done strictly according to the law. It's no use saying the laws are different now. We were told. You've got to study, you've got to have an education. It's more important than food. Your Honor, we weren't supposed to think for ourselves. There were others around us to do our thinking for us.
You were in the special commando assigned to duty at the crematoriums. How many prisoners are in that commando?
A total of 860 prisoners. Each special commando was destroyed after a few months and replaced by a new crew.
Under whom did you serve?
Dr. Mengele,
How did the delivery of the prisoners to the gas chambers proceed?
a whistle from a locomotive on its way from the platform to the gate was a signal that a new shipment had arrived. That meant that inside an hour, the ovens had to be fully operational. The electric motors were switched on. These started up the fans, brought the fire in the ovens up to the required temperature.
Could you see the groups coming off the arrival platform?
From the window in my workroom, I could see the upper half of the platform and the road to the crematorium. The people arrived 5 abreast and went through the gate slowly and wearily. Children hung onto their mothers' skirts. Old men carried babies or pushed baby carriages. The path was covered with black cinders, and on the grass on each side of the path were pipes with water faucets. The people crowded around them, and the commando let them drink, but hurried them on. There was still about 60 yards to go before they got to the stairs that led down to the anteroom.
How large was the anteroom?
About 50 yards long. Some 12 to 15 steps led down to it. The room was over 6 feet high. In the middle, there was a row of supporting columns.
How How many prisoners were taken down at a time?
From 1 to 2,000 prisoners.
Did they know what lay before them?
At the head of the narrow staircase, there were signs that said in various languages, bath and disinfection room. That sounded reassuring and calmed a lot of people who were still mistrustful. I often saw people go down there quite happily, and mothers joked with their children.
Did this large number of people never once attack their guards?
Everything always went quickly and smoothly. The command to undress was given, and while the people were still looking around bewildered, the special commando began to help them off with their clothes. There were benches along the walls, with numbered pegs over them. It was repeatedly announced that clothes and shoes must be hung on the peg, and that its number must not be forgotten to avoid unnecessary confusion upon return from the bath.
Was there never any outbreak of panic with so many people in such a small place?
Only once did I hear somebody shout, "They're going to kill us!" But somebody answered, "That's impossible. That can't happen. Keep calm." And when children started crying, their parents comforted them and joked and played with them as they carried them into the next room.
Where was the entrance to that?
At the end of the anteroom, it was a solid oak door with a peephole and a hand wheel that screwed the door shut.
How long did the undressing take?
About 10 minutes. Then they were all shoved into the next room.
Was force ever used?
The men in the special commando shouted, "Move! Step it up! The water's getting cold!" Naturally, there were also threats and beatings, or one of the guards would fire a shot.
Was this other room equipped with showers or disguised in any way?
No, there was nothing.
How big was this room?
Smaller than the anteroom, about 30 yards long.
Certainly with 1,000 or more people crowded into such a small space, there must have been some disturbance.
It was too late then. The last ones were pushed in and the doors screwed shut.
Can the witness offer any explanation why the prisoners allowed this to happen to them? Faced with that room, they must have known they were facing death.
No one had ever come out to tell about it.
Once they were in, what did they see?
There were concrete walls, with some valves on the walls. In the middle of the room were the pillars, and on each side 2 posts made out of perforated sheet iron. There were drains in the floor. This room, too, was brightly lit.
What can be heard from the people in there?
They began to scream, and they pounded on the door. But you couldn't hear much because of the strong roar that came from the cremation room.
What could be seen through the window in the door?
The people crowded the door, and they climbed up the pillars. They began to suffocate when the gas was thrown in. The gas was poured into the sheet iron posts from up above. There was a spiral channel inside the post which spread the substance. In the moist, hot air, it rapidly turned to gas and poured out through the holes.
How long did the gas take to kill?
That depended on the amount used. For reasons of economy, usually a less than adequate amount was poured in, so that the killing could take as long as 5 minutes.
What was the immediate effect of the gas?
It induced dizziness and severe nausea, and made breathing extremely difficult.
How long was the room kept under gas?
Approximately an hour. 20 minutes. Then the ventilation system was turned on and the gas pumped out. 30 minutes later, the doors were opened.
Did you see this room after the door had been opened?
Yes. The corpses lay piled on top of each other near the door and around the columns. Babies, children, and the sick at the bottom. Women above them. And at the very top, the strongest men. The reason for this was that the people climbed and trampled on each other because the gas initially spread most thickly at floor level. The people clawing each other were stuck together. Their skin was torn. Many were bleeding from nose and mouth. The faces were swollen and spotted. The clearance detail came in with hoses and washed the corpses down. Then they were pulled into the freight elevators and taken up to the ovens.
How large were these elevators?
There were 2 of them, each with a capacity of 25 decks. When one load was in, a bell was rung to signal the lugging detail that was standing by with carts on the floor above. They had thongs that they slipped over the wrists of the dead. The corpses were then lugged in the cars to the ovens on a special track. Blood was washed away by a steady stream of water. Before cremation, men of the Special Commando conducted a final search. Every ornament still to be found on the bodies was removed. Bracelets, neck chains, rings, earrings. Then the hair was cut off and immediately bundled and packed. Finally, the teeth extractors set to work. They were a crew picked from first-class specialists at Dr. Mengelay's express command. Still,
when they started in with their crowbars and tongs, they tore out not only gold teeth and bridges, but whole chunks of jaw. These pieces of bone and attached flesh were thrown into an acid vat to be eaten away. 100 men worked continually in 2 shifts at the ovens.
How many ovens were in the crematorium?
There were 5 ovens each in the big crematoriums 2 and 3. Each oven had 3 incinerating chambers.
How many bodies could be put into one chamber?
From 3 to 5 bodies could be put into one chamber. Then it could take a new load.
How long did cremation take in an oven chamber?
Approximately an hour. Then it could take a new load. In crematoriums 2 and 3, more than 3,000 people were cremated in less than 24 hours. In the summer of 1944, when the cremations reached their peak, up to 20,000 people were destroyed daily. The ashes were trucked off to a river 1.5 miles away and dumped into the water.
Accused Malka. Do not tell us what you knew about the extermination program. What orders you issued in this connection?
I issued no orders connected with that.
You knew nothing about the extermination program?
Only toward the end of my time in service. I can say now that I was filled with revulsion. We were convinced that our orders were all part of achieving some secret military objective. Mr. President, I almost broke down. The whole business made me so sick, I had to be hospitalized. But I want to make it clear that I only looked on from the outside and that I kept my own hands out of it. Your Honor, I was against the whole thing. I myself was persecuted by the system.
What happened to you?
I was arrested because I had expressed defeatist opinions. I was in prison for 3 months. After my release, I was caught in an enemy attack. As an old soldier, I was able to save many lives by helping with evacuations. My own son was killed. Mr. President, at this trial, the millions who also lost their lives for their own country should not be forgotten. What happened after the war shouldn't be forgotten either. All the things that are being done against us, all of us, I want to make that very clear. Did nothing but our duty, even when that duty was hard, and even when it grieved us to do it. Today, when our nation has worked its way up after a devastating war to a leading position in the world, we have to concern ourselves with other things than blame and reproaches that should be thought of as long since atoned.
It is tempting to think that nothing like the Holocaust can happen again. Nazi Germany lost the war. Major Nazis were dead. Israel, the Jewish state, has a population of almost 4 million. Other millions of Jews live in peace around the world. The United States alone has a population of over 6 million Jews. So, it seems it's time to sit back and relax. The worst is over. Everything has been taken care of, and there's nothing to worry about. Not so. Signs are everywhere, all the time, that the seeds that gave birth to the Holocaust lie buried not so far from the surface.
During a street fair in Brazil, a giant float is decorated with huge Nazi flags. Jewish cemeteries in the United States and elsewhere are vandalized, the stones overturned, and the tombs painted with the swastika. A kosher butcher's store windows are smashed and swastikas painted on the shop walls. A man accused of war crimes and involvement of the deportation of Jews is elected president of Austria. Although he is barred from entering the United States, he is received by Pope John Paul II at the Vatican.
In Japan, books with such titles as If You Understand Judea, You Understand the World, and The Secret of Jewish Power to Control the World have sold millions of copies. In the Soviet Union, Zionists are said to have helped the Nazis in order to convince Jews to come to Israel. Old Nazi caricatures and anti-Semitic drawings make their appearance in newspapers and magazines.
In Austria, a survey reveals that 22% of the people feel uncomfortable when they shake a Jew's hand, and 32% find Jews unpleasant. Some historians claim that the gas chambers did not exist, joining hands in this effort with the American Nazis, who proclaimed, all roads lead to Hitler, or they lead nowhere. So it seems, the seeds of hate remain, ready to blossom once again into some present horror, the same kind of misunderstanding and ignorance that gave rise to Nazism and the Holocaust never goes away. It remains against the Jews. But not only against the Jews, blacks still fight their battle to survive equally with whites. In former Yugoslavia, the Serbs continued the Nazi tradition under the new name of ethnic cleansing.
Perhaps the nightmare of the Holocaust will never happen again. But if it is forgotten, then the memory of 6 million Jews who died disappears like dust, and the world has learned nothing. Other newer nightmares continue to grow. The American philosopher George Santayana has said, those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. To remember the Holocaust, to remember the step-by-step growth of that monstrous machinery of destruction, is to help prevent the flowering of some new and possibly even greater evil.